Hey everyone, it's Chris, and welcome back to another exciting episode of my series covering a discovery of witches. If this is your first time here, I take TV shows and movies based on books and compare and contrast them to the source material, so there might be spoilers ahead. Viewer beware. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you won't miss any of my future videos, and click the notification icon to join the notification squad, as it were, and be the first to know when something new drops. Okay, let's just get into this. Up first, we have Prejudice. I really loved this angle in the novels, and I am very happy that they are doing a good job of dealing with it in the show. You know, from the way Diana's aunt, Sarah, reacts to finding out about her growing relationship with Matthew, to how you see Gillian react around Matthew, even referring to him as a thing. This prejudice is woven through every page of the novels, so I'm glad to see that they are still keeping it front and center in the show. Next up, we have The Old Lodge. This was interesting for a number of reasons. I am a little irritated that it now seems, with how they introduced the Old Lodge, that we won't be getting creature yoga. The Old Lodge is introduced in the first novel by way of this special yoga class, populated by vampires, witches, and demons. Diana discovers later that the house is Matthew's, as well as a lot of its history from him. One big difference here, though, is that the painting of his sister hung in the guard house and not in the main house. This might seem like a small thing, but Matthew's sister is an important part of his story, and how things are handled around her is very important as well. Okay, next we have Dinner with a Vampire. This was a pretty interesting adaptation from the novels as well. Specifically how Diana does research on wolves to find out what to feed Matthew for dinner. In the novels, she calls a friend who is a geneticist, I believe, named Chris, oddly enough, to find out about Matthew from a professional perspective, finding out that he had published groundbreaking work on wolves, which led to the menu she puts together, because she's told by Chris, I believe, that he had such an insight into the wolves that was like he was one. So that led her down this road of creating a menu that would be appropriate for wolves, hoping it would be appropriate for him. Chris is important later in the novels, so I'm curious to see what happens here. As for the dinner itself, I really liked the way they played this out. The scene where they taste the wine and describe what they smell was fantastic, especially leading into the question of the hour, what Diana would taste like. This happens in the novels, but not this early on, and while usually this type of thing just bothers me, it worked really well here. The chemistry that they have is really spectacular, and because of the way they set this scene up, it was on full display. Also, I imagine after that kiss, he went and killed like 50 deer, if, it took one just from smelling her shirt. Okay, next up we have The Witch's Archive. This was odd in one sense and great in another. In the novels, Satu isn't working with Nox directly. She finds out about Diana, becomes interested in her, and then tracks her down. Having her work with Nox directly, and then seeing her, researching in the archives was very, very cool, and helped round out her story in a way that it didn't really happen in the novels. The odd part for me is that they had a vampire invade the archive and attack her. The congregation is universally feared and respected, so having him just casually pop in and choke her on congregation grounds seemed very much out of bounds, so that was a little off-putting for me. Okay, next up we have The Blood Lab. This was well done and spectacularly important for the overarching story. It's not something I can really talk about at the moment, but we should find out fairly soon what the results of her tests were and what lasting effect it has on the entire world of All Souls that they've built here. So supremely important, just can't talk about it yet. Okay, and next we have Damons Everywhere. Well, it seems my concern that they would be going light on the Damons was unfounded. By introducing Sophie Nathaniel and Agatha Wilson, Damons are now squarely on the map, which is a good thing, especially this group of Damons. One of the most interesting bits for me in this part of the episode is that the statue that Sophie has of the goddess Diana is a chess piece in the novels, which is more important than you would think. If they have changed what the statue is, then I'm assuming they're going to change how Sophie's family gets it, which in turn monumentally affects the story of Diana and Matthew. So this is all very interesting, and I'm excited and a little worried to see how it plays out. Okay, next up we have Witch Wind. I don't believe that this happened at this time. I'm almost positive it did not, in this way in the novels. But she does call Witch Wind, as well as other elemental witch powers in the novels, when very specific circumstances are met. It was also odd that Knox, a member of the congregation, would be using magic so publicly and blatantly as this. Each of the three races were pretty careful in the novels to hide what they were from humans. So having things so out there, quote unquote, seems real odd to me. With that being said, this is a pretty major deviation from the novels, since in the first novel, Diana barely did any magic. I had hoped that they were going to be doing one novel a season, but it feels more and more like they are going to be attempting to combine aspects of the first two novels into this season, which does make me a little nervous. And lastly, we're going to be looking at taking a trip to France. This feels like it is happening really early as well, which is kind of troubling, but it is where things really start to take off in the novel. So I can see why they wanted to get to this part a lot faster. Hopefully they're going to take their time with the story from here, since the events around Isabeau, Philippe, and Baldwin are pretty spectacular, and it is here in France that the adventure really begins for Diana and Matthew. So I guess excited and nervous at the same time? Alright, that is it for this video. Another great episode, even with my little concerns noted there. Spectacular episode, and just beautiful again to look at, and the cast is just spectacular, and I am super excited about the next episode where they introduce Isabeau, because the actress playing her is just fantastic, and I really love that part of the story, so I'm looking forward to how they deal with that and the deep history of the de Clermont family. So the next episode will be out in a couple of days, which will be covering episode 4 of A Discovery of Witches, and it looks like I have a good idea for a new Shannara video, so I will be doing that coming soon. So if you're a Shannara fan, look forward to that. Okay, I will see you guys in the next video. Take it easy.